the fuck is the blockchain? I need to know what this is.
How do you keep laughing? He dog shit.
No. Let it go. Let it go.
Disrespectful.
Yeah.
So let's start with blockchain technology.
Yeah.
Blockchain technology was created to solve a problem called the double spend problem. So you got to understand the problem to understand the solution. If I create music and I put it out in a digital format, it's a music file, right? You have the music file and you're listening to the shit. You're like, damn, Pomp is a fucking banger.
Yeah.
Andrew wants it. He's like, yo, send me the song. You hit send. When you hit send, the computer program creates a copy, sends him the song. He's now listening to my song, but you still have my song as well. You both can listen. You're both happy. You're like, yo, we can listen to the cool song, right? But you don't know who has the original and who has the copy. All you know is you got a file. That's fine when it's music. That's fine when it's a photo. That's fine when it's all these things that it doesn't matter about scarcity. But with money, if I have a fucking digital dollar and you say, send me the dollar and I send you it and now you got it and I got it, well, who's got the dollar? Who's got the real? Who's got the counterfeit? We don't know. And so there's been a bunch of people over the years who have tried to create digital currency, but this has been the big problem is the file can be replicated easily and you can't prove what the original is. So that's called a double spend problem. He could send it to you and then send it to me and we both think we got the dollar, but actually we just got copies and he still has the dollar. Seems like a problem.
Isn't this how banking works to a certain extent?
Let's not go there.
But I don't want to spend too much time, but isn't that the whole idea of like if the bank only needs to keep 10% of the reserves in the bank and there's $100,000, can't you lend out 90 to him and now you just made 190? Well, you just made $90,000 out of nowhere? So
there's leverage, there's all this complexity, but basically what they're doing in that situation is they're not creating new currency. What they're doing is they're borrowing it or you're depositing it with them and they're lending it on the back end and they're doing all this stuff. But technically, is it your money? Is it an IOU that they have?
But you've made more out of nowhere.
No, because you gave them some money. Then there's leverage. They can borrow. They can do all this stuff. The key to this is counterfeit versus original.
I understand that.
Right?
I understand. I just think that the idea of like printing money isn't that novel because like if you're
banks want to be central banks. We can get into that.
No. Let's keep crypty. But like, let's say I give you $100,000 to keep in your Bank of America, and he wants a loan. You could give him $90,000 of my $100,000, but I can get my $100,000 whenever I want, and he can get his 90 whenever he wants. So you just made $90,000 out of nowhere.
So when you give me the money, a lot of people don't know this. It's not your money anymore.
What?
When you deposit the money in the bank, it's not your money. They have an IOU. They owe you $100,000, but technically it's their money now.
Oh shit.
Hey, pump.
All right, let's get back to blockchain. Ready?
Okay. So
that's a fact.
So you ready? Yeah, that's a fact. So look, here's the whole idea of a blockchain is if we sit down and
so blockchain verifies the original.
At a very high level, but here's how it works. Let's say we go to play Monopoly. This is the best way to describe it. 4 of us sit down to play Monopoly. And with Monopoly, there's a bank, and then each of us have the money in the game, and we set it out in front of us, right? And the reason why Monopoly works is because as we are doing transactions, you owe him money. Bam, I see you hand him the $200. He hands me the money, right? All this stuff. We don't need a fifth person to stand over us and act as the banker or the centralized entity who does all the transactions because there's full transparency. Right? If you ever play with a kid and they put the money under the table, you're like, yo, get that shit up here. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but like, I don't trust you, right? So when the money's transparently put on the table and then all the transactions happen in front of everybody, we all don't have to trust that it's being done correctly. We can verify it. I saw you give them the $200.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
So a blockchain basically is if we were playing that game and we had a piece of paper and I wrote down every transaction, right? I said, yo, I gave Andrew $200. Right? You here.
So it's a ledger.
But every 10 minutes, I ripped off the piece of paper and I put it to the side. And I said, all right, that was the first 10 minutes of the game. That's all the transactions that happened. And then all of a sudden we played for the next 10 minutes. Started a new piece of paper, did it again. Bam, done. I rip off that piece. I stack it on top of the first 10 minutes. We keep playing. We've been playing for 50 minutes. Now there's 5 pieces of paper sitting over here. And you go, you know what? I think that you owe me $30. I can say, no, actually, in minute 32, let me go back to the transactions and I can show you that I gave you that $30 already. That's essentially what a blockchain does. But rather than it be on paper, what it does is every 10 minutes, it takes all of the transactions that happen on the Bitcoin network and it basically puts it into a block. So it's literally, just think of it almost like in an overgeneralized way, a Excel file, right, of all the transactions. And then there's people who run the network. They validate, yep, looks good. And as long as more than 51% of people validate it, they chain the block of transactions to the last one. And it goes all the way back to the beginning. So from January 3rd, 2009, you can go back on a blockchain and see every single transaction that's ever happened in this network. So it's literally blocks of transactions that are chained
chain.
together.
Yeah.
Bitcoin block chain.
Potentially really stupid question. Is that hackable?
So can it ever be hacked? Any computer network, quote unquote, could be hacked.
Right.
The probability that it gets hacked is near zero because it is the strongest computing network in the world. And the whole idea behind the Bitcoin network is that it's decentralized.
Yes.
So when I talked about us playing Monopoly, if there was a fifth person who was like the boss of the game, then that would be like the centralized, that'd be like the bank, right? And so today, if I want to send money to one of you through the US system, a bank says, I'm going to debit Pomp's account and I'm going to credit Andrew's, right?
Yeah.
But what if we don't need them? A peer-to-peer. I just want to send it to you. I don't want anyone else to fuck with it. I want to just send it to you. So decentralization means that there's nowhere to hack it.
51% consensus in order to put it on the blockchain.
Yes.
What is that 51% of whom?
So the way that it works is there's miners around the world. And this goes to decentralization. Yep. So if there's not a centralized company that owns this thing, who runs it? Well, there's people running the software. They have specialized computers. Think of it like a data center, right? They plug them in, and what they're doing is they're running all these computations. Super complex process. We don't need to go into what they're doing
solving
exactly.
Problems, right?
Solving problems.
They get rewarded for solving the problems.
There's a financial incentive.
Yeah.
So every 10 minutes in the beginning, 50 Bitcoin were given out to the network, and if you were running computers, you had a chance to get some of those 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes.
If you solve enough problems. You get rewarded for the...
You get rewarded.
Gotcha.
As you know more than you're letting on. As you're doing this, what ends up happening is that went on for 4 years. Every 10 minutes for 4 years, 50 Bitcoin. After 4 years, programmatically, meaning it was written into the code, it cut from 50 to 25. So what happens if you have a fixed supply and demand keeps going up and the incoming supply drops? The fucking price goes up.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Now that there's less, are there more problems that you essentially have to solve in order to access a new bit of coin? In other words, does the processing go up to mine a new coin?
Along
with the...
In a way, the better way, I think people that are kind of learning about all this to think about it is the more competition there is for the Bitcoin reward, the more work you have to do.
Yep.
The other thing is that there's less Bitcoin. So it went from 50 to 25, 25 to 12 and a half, 12 and a half to now 6.25.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll get cut in half again in about 3.5 years.
And this is to maintain value along with demand.
Think about Visa. When Visa runs the transaction, the Visa network, we pay for it. We and the merchants pay to use the system. All of that revenue goes onto a centralized P&L, right? Like into their bank account. It sits there, and if you're a Visa shareholder, that's part of your money.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a decentralized entity, where does that go? The transaction fees plus this Bitcoin reward basically gets distributed on across all these people running the network. So you today could go become a quote unquote owner in a sense, right, of a portion of the revenue of the Bitcoin network. You got to go get a computer, you plug it in, you point it to this network, you start running the software, and now all of a sudden you're one of millions of miners around the world. And every time a new person joins to get part of this revenue, it becomes more and more decentralized, which means that whether it's the government, whether it's a hacker, whether it's whoever, they have to basically penetrate everybody. They can't just, or 51% of people, right? They can't just penetrate your computer or your computer. They got to get more of the control of the network. And that's what makes it so secure.
And my understanding is that it takes an immense amount of processing power to mine for this Bitcoin.
A ton.
It's
the strongest computing network in the world. Meaning if you take all the computing power that's pointed at this thing and running the software, it's by far the strongest network in the world.